One of the things that I'm most proud of to have been a part of it ever in the history of the BioSummit is the creation of the Global Community Biofellowship Program. So this fellowship program connects very deeply with a definition of leadership from Marshall Gans, which I personally value deeply, which reads, leadership is accepting responsibility to create conditions that enable others to achieve shared purpose in the face of uncertainty. So Marshall is going to join us in about 15 minutes to give us a talk on governance and structure. But this definition, I think, really helped to inspire us to think about how do we ultimately scale this movement around community bio, around grassroots life sciences? How do we get more people involved and really turn this into and expand the global movement? And really the core of that is ultimately leadership. And so last year with a group of intrepid co-founders, along with Abel, Allison Stringer, JJ, Justice, Desiree, Maria, and Zach, we organized the first fellowship program. And so that year's fellows group, we had 36 fellows from all around the world. A number of you are here right now. Just really, truly an inspiring group of folks. Many of them are in leadership positions now within the BioSummit, and all of them are leaders in their communities wherever they are in the world. Last year, because we were convening in person, they all came in person to the BioSummit. And this is a group photo of that whole group together. And they all presented different group projects. So projects related to exchange networks, low-cost diagnostics, ways to share protocols, how to work on education, how to do science communication, and of course, fermentation. How can we not have bio without fermentation? So we had amazing projects last year. This year, you'll notice that all of our community bio fellows, they're all connected by the regional network meetings that will be happening on Sunday. So every single region of the world, each continent has a regional meeting that's being organized by the fellows. So that's going to be happening Sunday for all of the regions except for Asia. Asia is going to be a different time because 1 p.m. Eastern is like in the middle of the night for them. So again, check the schedule. Everything is on the schedule on the website. And so we've had this really marvelous group for last year. And this year, we are again, so honored and thrilled to be able to pull together another great organizing committee. And so part of what is a big part of the whole pedagogy in a way is raising up leaders and is ultimately developing new leadership. And so you'll notice that a number of our coaches and our organizers for this year's fellows cohort were themselves fellows last year, including Carolyn, Isis, Kevin, and Mar, and Ola. All of them are here. Shout outs to all of you. Ola, I want to give you a special shout out for applications. Ola, we've had over 650, I think, applications, and Ola has just been leading the charge, making sure every single one of those applications got read by at least one person. Ola, just thank you. You've been just so incredible. But really, our whole group of coaches has been so amazing this year. And so this year's group of fellows is spectacular. I feel so honored to have any association with all of them. They're all on the website, so you can look at them more there as well. And you know, Abai, Abigail, etc. I don't have time to read everybody's names, but everybody is here. We're going to do something special to welcome them all at the very end of this segment. So don't worry, they're all going to have a moment to communicate with you all through a video that we've created. But I did want here actually to, Clayton, if it's possible, let's try to do this. If you're able to grab everybody to just spotlight the coaches. If it's possible to do it, if it's not too crazy. But yeah, coaches, why don't you guys wave? Just give a little wave, and Abel here too, please. There we go. All of our coaching squad here. And so again, just such phenomenal work by everybody. And really, I think so much credit goes to everybody for all of their hard work, and special credit. I really want to acknowledge Abel Cano. So Abel, I've known Abel since Abel was actually in college at UMass Boston. We actually worked together at my community center that I presented earlier at EMW many years ago. And Abel has since gone on to really become, I think, just one of the great facilitators on planet Earth. He can facilitate anything, moderate anything, host anything. And the leadership development that he has built out, he has his own organization, and also I think is working now for the Chan Zuckerberg Institute to do leadership and coaching there. But Abel is just such a phenomenal coach, has structured all of this work. So all of the curriculum that's been built out for both years programs, Abel has designed, and again connects back to Marshall Ganz's pedagogy, and Marshall will be joining us in a few minutes. But I want to turn it over to Abel to talk a little bit more about the program itself and what the fellows learned and some highlights from this year. So everybody, can you all join me in giving some snaps and some claps and some love to Abel Cano? Abel.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome. It's so wonderful to see all of you here. Man, you all are calling in from all over the world, and it's so cool to be in one space with you now. I just wanted to take a few minutes to share a little bit about the program, the fellowship program. I know you saw the coaches waving a moment ago. I see a bunch of you here. Super proud of what we're able to build together. One way to think about this is this pedagogy and this framework was originally created by Marshall Ganz, who you get to hear from a little while from now. And it was adapted and developed with organizers from all over the world who are thinking about how do we practice movement building, organizing, how do we actually approach change in our own communities? And through that practice, this pedagogy, this framework was developed. And I think one of the most beautiful things about it is that it really closely links practice and action, or practice and theory. In other words, in order to learn the work that we're learning, we learn by doing. And the 6 practices that we learn are all rooted in a core approach to change in the world, which is community organizing. Now, the power of that is that organizing believes that it isn't until people who are most directly impacted by the problem become authors of their own solution, true change will come, right? So it's really about thinking about how we leverage and support communities, which, the root word of community in Latin stands for comos, people who live together. The work of organizers is to turn communities into constituencies. And the root word of constituency in Latin is constare, which means people who stand together. In other words, what we aim to do is move communities who live together into communities who can act together, stand together, decide together, vote together, and act together, right? So that's part of our work. And the way that we do it through the leadership framework is really, as you can see in the image, rooted in our resources. We often sometimes feel in the world like we're lacking in resources, especially when we're going up against really big organizations or dominant institutions that have all this power and resource. But really, it can feel like we're David going up against Goliath, but we're not entirely lacking in resources. We're resource rich in many ways. The question for us is, how do we organize our resources in new ways to achieve our change? So it begins with our resources. It begins with our people. And the 6 practices that we learn, because we do emphasize in this fellowship program, practice over position. I'm sure you've encountered a lot of leaders in formal positions that perhaps aren't practicing good leadership. Is that right? Have you ever run into that? Yeah. So we really emphasize practice over position. This is a practice of leadership. So what we do is we begin with the practice of coaching. Now, I wonder if you've ever had a real challenge in your own leadership work, or even if you were on a team and someone was having a hard time figuring out what to do. Oftentimes we can default to interacting with each other in ways that don't necessarily enable more leadership along the way. So coaching is really about unlocking the power of asking questions as one way to move people through a potential leadership challenge. That's important because it really enables others' leadership, as opposed to just keeping it centered on one person or one set of people. And when we get into that practice of asking questions really powerfully, thinking about it that way, we move into the work of public narrative. Public narrative is incredibly powerful. It was one of the most pivotal parts for me when I was first learning this framework with Marshall, right before I joined the Obama campaign, actually. It was back in 2012. But this idea that both the head and the heart matter, and that our life experience can be a tremendous teacher because it taught us the values that actually move us to action. And the idea that sometimes emotions can be a distraction is a challenge, right? It's actually emotions are what move us to act. And so public narrative is one way of harnessing our life experience, our values and our stories to actually move people to action. From that point, we get into building relationships, and you might notice each piece builds upon the last. Once we do uncover and unlock some of our stories, we use them to actually build meaningful relationships at the level of our values, not just at the level of our issues. And then we get into team building. How do you build a really dynamic team to build a dream team instead of what we might think of as an ineffective team or a scream team? I'm sure we've all been part of both. And then we get into creating shared strategy, right? Really thinking about who our people are thoughtfully, what is the change that they see from their perspective? What goal can we create together that can make a real change in people's lives? And then actually, how do we think about our theory? What's our theory about how we'll approach that change? I know a lot of us in science think about hypotheses, right? So it's really like, what's our hypothesis of how change will happen? And then we create what we call tactics and timeline, a real timeline to achieve that change over time. And then finally mobilizing for action to achieve that goal. I'll just say one word about how we teach it. I think it's really important to lift this up. It's rooted in a mindset, a growth mindset, an approach to learning that says your capacity to learn and to grow and develop is limitless. And sometimes when we learn something new and it doesn't feel like we're getting it right away, we can develop a fixed mindset about our own capacity and think that if we don't get it now, we'll never get it. But this entire approach is really about creating a brave space and an approach to learning that's rooted in a growth mindset. And it's really like getting on a bike. And we could say more about that at another time, but really wanted to just lift that up. The pedagogy is a 4-step pedagogy where first we explain what it is that we're going to be talking about. Second, we show an example of what it looks like in practice, because it's hard to do something you haven't seen done well. And then we get into small groups, and that's where the magic happens. That's where our pod leaders were really shining. They offer you coaching and guidance where you actually get on the bike, practice it for yourself to see what it feels like to build relationships or build a team or tell your story. And then we come back together and we debrief. And those are the 4 steps of our pedagogy. One way to think about this is that we model the training and we develop the training practice in the same way that we would actually develop an organizing campaign. And you'll notice that through the course of the fellowship program, you have an option to actually build out a real campaign and a real team through the action that you take along the way. So each time that we get together, it could be real. You could be developing real strategies, or it could just be a learning environment. It's really your choice. But even the way that we structure our leadership team reflects the teaching that we're offering as one way to build a campaign, and one way to build a meaningful team, and one way to build a movement. So the Snowflake leadership model, will say a lot more about that, but essentially we have the core team that kind of sits in the center of the Snowflake. And as a lead trainer and coaches, they kind of sit on that second rung there of the Snowflake model, and their role would be to support you all as participants, and you would be on that outside ring. And in that way, we all have shared commitment, shared communication, but we're really building out a structure that can expand over space and time to be able to reach all of these different regions around the world. This was also the way the Obama campaign organized in 2012. It was my first experience of actually trying to build my own Snowflake model after learning it from Marshall. And it's one really powerful way to organize ourselves in terms of leadership. So with that said, I'll stop sharing my screen. I'll just name briefly, I'm not sure how we're doing on time, but I'll name briefly that the way that we built out the fellowship was one session over 6 weeks, and each session would be 3 hours long. And during those 3 hours, we would move through the 4 steps of that pedagogy that I just outlined. We'd explain, we'd model, practice, we'd debrief, and each week we would focus on a different practice. We'd start with coaching, go to public narrative, relationship building teams, strategy, and action. And this year, I don't know how others feel, but I feel like it blew by because we had so many incredible fellows with us. Our pod leaders, we were meeting every Sunday to get ready for the sessions. And when it came to the last session, we were all like, does it have to end? Can we keep going? So I just want to say that it's been a beautiful experience to continue building with this community. And I do hope if you're interested in building your own leadership and in engaging in more meaningful ways within this community, that you consider applying and becoming part of the third year, perhaps, of alumni that have come through this training program. So I'll stop there and toss it back over to you, David.
Can we all give some love to Abel again? Abel, thank you again for everything, both for your words now, but also just for being such an incredible leader. So at this point, we want to introduce the fellows to you. So I want to give a shout out to Nels and I think this is a draft video. We're still working on a version of it. And remember, BioSummit itself is a giant prototype. So we're all still working on through this. Clayton, I noticed that Marshall has joined us. If you don't mind making Marshall a co-host while we get this video going. And so a reminder, I shared with you all earlier at the very beginning of today, our statement of shared purpose, right? This is something that we co-designed and co-developed together at BioSummit 2.0. And so you're gonna see now a video of the fellows, and what they're gonna be saying is actually the statement of shared purpose, but articulated verbally, and hopefully you all enjoy this. So Clayton, why don't we go ahead and play the video?
Hola. Madame.
Jumbo.
Bonjour.
Hi.
Hey.
Namaste.
Servus.
Vanakkam. Привіт!
Hey everyone, hello.
Okay, Cano.
Our shared purpose
Is to fundamentally
Transform life sciences
and democratize
biotechnology
to inspire
creativity
and improve life.
By organizing life science
change makers
and by enthusiasts
to build an inclusive global network,
cultivate
an accessible commons of knowledge
and resources,
launch community labs
and projects,
and enable local educators.
To go out to the bang, woo! I'm gonna play some funk music for you now.
Yeah, that was amazing. Oh my God, that was so great. That was actually my first time seeing the entire video. So, so I think that was a global debut. Nels, thank you so much for pulling that together. That was incredible. I hope that warmed your heart as much as that warmed my heart. Just so much love again to every single one of our fellows for being a part of this program and for being amazing leaders.